Hi, welcome to SBR Videos. I'm Peter Loshak. Today is Wednesday, December 30th. We are talking right now with professional sports bettor Teddy Covers, and we still have the college football semifinals, the college football playoff semifinals coming up this weekend, but we're going to get a head start. We're going to take a look at possible ATS trends to think about from past college football national championship games. Teddy Covers, thanks for being with us. All right, we don't know who's going to be in the game, although I'm assuming it's going to be Alabama, right? Are you not assuming that?
Not assuming anything. I mean, the goal of this exercise was to take a look at the last 10 national title winners and see what those teams had in common. And then from that, take a look at the 4 teams playing with a chance to win the title this year and see which of those 4 teams deserves to be the favorite, which of those teams has more in common with previous champions than the rest.
Well, one thing that Alabama has in common with previous champions is that they were Alabama, and they're Alabama this year.
Yeah, and frankly, from a quick, if you want to do a 2-minute perusal of the stats, Alabama stands out as the team to beat, and they're the betting favorites for a reason. They're big chalk over Michigan State for a reason, because the Crimson Tide this year have many of the same things that recent Crimson Tide national championship teams have had, namely a loaded recruiting class, a stellar defensive line, and a pass defense that ranks with the nation's elite. Those 3 factors, Alabama's got all 3, and there isn't another team in the mix that can share that commonality with the previous champs.
All right, yeah, well, looking at futures odds right now, Alabama's about even money to win the whole thing, and I talked to some other people who crunch numbers in an advanced statistical way that I respect, and they kind of gave the opinion that maybe betting on the no for Alabama to win it all might actually have some value. Sounds like, though, you're disagreeing with that.
Well, again, the goal here was to look at everything in the past and say, what can that tell us about these matchups?
Okay, what else can you tell us?
There are 3 real consistent factors for every national champion over the last 10 years. And it starts with talent. It starts with those recruiting rankings that you look at every summer and say, who got the best talent. Oklahoma's not in the top dozen. Clemson's not in the top dozen. Michigan State isn't even close to the top dozen when you look over the last 4 years. And Alabama's sitting at number 1. So we know de facto, a priori, you love it when I say that, that Alabama has the most talent coming in. They've got the most blue chippers. They've got the most NFL prospects. And boy, that matters when you start playing games of this magnitude.
Absolutely. And we've seen this in the past where Alabama was not necessarily an ATS killer during the regular season, but then when they start to play these big games against other elite teams where they're a big favorite, it seems like maybe they're a little bit too much of a favorite, and then you see the game unfold a little bit close to start, and then they start to run away with it. They get double-digit wins over big teams and cover, and then you look back and in retrospect you say, Alabama really had a bigger edge than I was thinking that they had before the game started.
Yeah, one thing that shocked me, that shocked is not the right word, but that at least surprised me a little bit was when you look, I understand that Alabama's defensive numbers have been dominant all year. I mean, when you look at what their defense is able to do against teams that want to run north-south.
Right, especially since the Ole Miss game.
Yeah, Ole Miss had a couple of lucky pass plays. They spread them out. Michigan State's not going to do that. We'll see who if Alabama survives that game and gets to the Oklahoma-Clemson winner, whether they'll be in a little bit of a different spot. But from a personnel standpoint, Alabama stands out above the rest. And from a defensive efficiency standpoint, Alabama also stands out above the rest. They've been dominant against the run and against the pass at a level that Clemson, Oklahoma, and Michigan State have not been, at least from a statistical standpoint.
All right, Teddy Covers, is there anything else you'd like to share with us about this topic?
Last thing to say is that one thing that the past 10 champions have had in common, they all have elite level pass defenses. And this year, 3 of the 4 teams are right there. The team that doesn't, and it really surprised me when I looked at the numbers. I'm not a big stats-based guy, but at this time of year, you want to look at the aggregate stats and see what the markets are reacting to. Michigan State, you know how tough and feisty and all that they are. They're also ranked number 67 against the pass this year. I was kind of supporting the Spartans when we did our initial preview of the game. And boy, when you look at these numbers, my enthusiasm for Michigan State is declining by the hour.
Yeah, and just kind of to reiterate what I said before, just from experience watching and betting these Alabama games, a lot of times in these big high-profile games, when they are a big favorite over another elite team, it's just my gut tells me that, until something changes with that program, you want to be leaning towards Alabama even as a big favorite.
They're clearly the team to beat.
Thanks so much, Teddy Covers.